Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Recently, at the Games Development Conference, Sven Vinke announced that Larian Studios will not be moving forward with making Baldur's Gate 4, and indeed, they have no plans to make DLC or expansions for Baldur's Gate 3. Now, this was a huge shock for a lot of people, myself included. I thought for sure Wizards of the Coast would throw the biggest bag they possibly could to try to get Larian Studios to stay, but apparently it was all for naught. They're definitely deciding to move on. Sven Vinke actually put up a Twitter post making it clear that Wizards of the Coast is not to blame for Larian Studios taking a different direction. And actually, they really did their best and been a great licensor for them, letting them do their own thing. But they want to do this because they feel it's best for Larian Studios. Now, of course, we have to take that statement at face value, right? And say, hey, Wizards of the Coast, they were great partners, did everything that they could, and Larian Studios has just decided to move on. But honestly, I think that a couple of things Wizards of the Coast have done really rubbed the leaders at Larian Studios the wrong way and pushed them towards making this decision. And the first one, I think, is rather obvious. There was a ton of controversy surrounding Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast right before Baldur's Gate 3 came out in regards to how they treated the OGL license. We've talked about that situation to death when it happened, so I'm not going to rehash it here. But there were serious concerns that that situation was going to impact Baldur's Gate 3 sales. Fortunately, it did not, but I'm sure it left a very bad taste in the mouth of a lot of people who were involved. And perhaps even more importantly, during the Games Development Conference, Sven Vinke made some pretty strong comments about corporate greed. Now, he was specifically talking about publishers in the gaming industry, but some of you might recall Hasbro did some pretty vicious layoffs back in December of 2023. They laid off about 1,100 people from Wizards of the Coast. Many of them would have been people who were directly helping Larian Studios to assist with Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm sure they have positive relations with many of them, and it kind of just feeds into everything that Sven has made it clear he stands against. And I think it's worth actually reading his comments because, again, they're pretty freaking strong, and it's clear where he stands. Greed has been fucking this whole thing up for so long since I started, Vinke said, while collecting the GDCA Best Narrative Award for Baldur's Gate 3. I've been fighting publishers my entire life, and I keep on seeing the same mistakes over and over. It's always the quarterly profits, he continued. The only thing that matters are the numbers. And then you fire everybody, and then next year you say, shit, I'm out of developers. And then you start hiring people again, and then you do acquisitions, and then you put them in the same loop again, and it's just broken. You don't have to, Vinke went on. You can make reserves. Just slow down a bit. Slow down on the greed. Be resilient. Take care of the people. Don't lose the institutional knowledge that's been built up in the people you lose every single time. So you have to go through the same cycle over and over. It really pisses me off. And so again, this whole statement, it's about the publishers in gaming, but it 100% applies to what Hasbro did in December. And I'm sure it affected Larian Studios in a direct way as far as the relationships that they had cultivated. So to me, what they did was right in line with everything that he hates, and by extension that Larian Studio hates. And I think they just don't want to be associated anymore with Hasbro. And because of that, they've decided to cut ties with Wizards of the Coast as well. Of course, I don't know anything. We take what he said at face value, that it really has nothing to do with them. But just observing the situation, to me, it's hard not to make that connection. And before we move on to what Larian Studios is going to do in the future, I just got to say, I think this whole situation is extremely bad for Wizards of the Coast. And again, by extension, Hasbro. It's so weird to me that Wizards of the Coast and the gaming division of Hasbro is the most profitable thing that it has. And yet it keeps making moves that are damaging that brand, damaging that product, and making it much harder for them to be profitable. No matter what studio picks up Baldur's Gate 4, they're just not going to be able to do as good of a job as Larian Studios will be able to do. And mind you, there are other developers like Owlcat Games, for example, who I feel like would have a take on Baldur's Gate that I would like more than the take that Larian Studios has. But the fact of the matter is, the resources available to them are just way beyond 95% of studios who could potentially take this up. And their ability, the knowledge base that is at that developer right now, is also way beyond the vast majority of studios who will be willing to get involved in something like this. So unless Wizards of the Coast is able to make an announcement next year to say like, hey, CDPR has decided to make another Baldur's Gate game, you could be pretty sure that the next one, its production values are not going to be at the same level. The scope is probably going to be smaller. Like, they're going to have to cut a lot of corners because there's really not very many developers. You can count on one hand the number of developers who could make a sequel to Baldur's Gate 3 that would be of a similar scope, scale, and production value. Never mind being larger than what they originally did. So this is going to be rough for them. It's going to be interesting to see what they do to try to keep the games division afloat and keep people interested, because frankly, a lot of people only checked out Baldur's Gate 3 because of Larian Studios and the incredible marketing job that they did. There were a ton of people who were basically like, I'm not going to play another D&D video game again. In fact, there were even a bunch of people who were like, I'm not going to see the Dungeons and Dragons movie because I'm so disgusted by what Hasbro has been doing. I don't want to support any of their products. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. But switching back over to Larian Studios, obviously they're going to continue making games, and it was announced that they're going to be working on a new game, but it appears it is not Divinity Original Sin 3, which frankly is a little disappointing for me. I would love to get a continuation of that game. Specifically, I would love to see what kind of character creation options we would get for lizards. When you look at how amazing Dragonborn are in Baldur's Gate 3, I feel like they could take lizards and do it times 10, especially since lizards get unique armor. So I just think from a visual standpoint, a character customization standpoint, it would be really, really cool to revisit that. But Larian Studios has said that their next game is actually going to be bigger in scope from Baldur's Gate 3, which is really, really exciting. And they said while it's not going to be what people are expecting, it is going to be familiar. So hopefully that does still mean we're going to get a role-playing game of some sort with a story beginning, middle, and end. I just, what I would hate to see is them come out with like a battle royale or a live service game or some crap like that. Hopefully they're not going in that direction, because unfortunately it's Larian Studios. So if they came out with it, I'd have to play it. I'd have to give it a whirl. And I usually avoid those games like the plague. But another interesting thing that Swin mentioned in a GameSpot interview, which was fantastic, by the way. There's a lot of interesting things in that interview we're not going to talk about in this video, but I'll leave a link down below so you can watch it yourself. He mentioned that there's really a larger RPG that he's working towards. It's not going to be the next one that Larian Studios does, but he has a vision, and in fact, he's had this vision for quite some time about a game that he wants to do that he said just completely dwarfs Baldur's Gate 3, but the technology has not caught up yet. We're not quite at the point where he feels like he can do what he wants to do for this game. So that's really, really exciting. It's just cool to see a studio with so many resources that also has real vision. They say, hey, we are going to push the boundaries, and we know exactly how we want to push the boundaries. It makes it so easy to root for them, to be excited for what they do next. So I'm just really happy to be able to support a company like this and looking forward to what comes next on the horizon. Now, final thing I want to bring up regarding Larian Studios is they did announce while there's not going to be new paid DLC, there is some free DLC that they're continuing to look at to expand what's in the game, which obviously is freaking fantastic. And one of those things, which many of you have been hitting me up about, and you know I'm excited, they are going to add some new endings for evil playthroughs. So for those of you who probably aren't aware, because a lot of people don't do evil playthroughs in games, Baldur's Gate 3, one of the greatest games I've ever played when you do a good aligned playthrough. Evil aligned is significantly worse, significantly worse. You lose access to a ton of items, to a lot of party members. You are significantly weaker by the end of the game. Like, the game really punishes you for going through as an evil character, which is not really the way RPGs are supposed to work. It's supposed to be, hey, there's reactivity to your choices, and if you do good, some things will happen. If you do evil, some things will happen. It's not supposed to be punitive in that manner, usually. And so it seems like Larian Studios understands that to some degree, and they're going to try to add some content that will help flesh things out. Honestly, even new endings is not going to really fix what's wrong with evil playthroughs in Baldur's Gate 3, but I appreciate them taking this step because, let's be honest, part of the reason why there wasn't that much content for it to begin with is that a lot of people don't like doing evil playthroughs. They don't bother with it. And so they like the idea that it's there, that they could do this, but they never actually move forward with it. So that's probably part of the reason why Larian Studios didn't feel the need to flesh that out. Me personally, if I put down $70 for a game, I want to experience everything in it, and I want everything I experience to be great. So I was disappointed to see how the game handles those evil playthroughs. Hopefully the new endings will flesh out the content a little bit more, just add some new items or change how things work from a party member standpoint and help make the two playthroughs a little bit more equal. They're also looking at mod support, specifically how to allow mods that are on the PC to be enjoyed by those people playing Baldur's Gate 3 on consoles. Now, they mentioned up front that it's not going to be all mods. They already know, like, some mods, there's no way they're going to be able to make it work. But they're talking with Microsoft, talking with Sony, looking at some of the mods that are on PC and trying to figure out what are some really cool options that they could bring over to the consoles. And this is actually similar to something that they did for Divinity Original Sin 2 in the Enhanced Edition. They took about maybe 20, I think, of the mods that they really liked, and they felt like could work well across all the platforms. And then they made them toggle options that you could use in the game. So you could go in there and add a mod that automatically gave you the talent that allowed you to speak to pets and things of that nature. And it was really freaking cool. It added so much to those playthroughs, and I'm really happy that they did that. And so it'll be interesting to see how that works with Baldur's Gate 3. So yeah, interesting times, right? I was really looking forward to Baldur's Gate 4 from Larian Studios, or at least some DLC or expansion from them. So I'll be honest, it is disappointing to find out they're going to just kind of walk away from the world. They mentioned that Wizards of the Coast now will have complete control of these characters and where they go, which honestly is terrifying. Considering the fact I don't have any faith in what they're doing. So might just be we have to enjoy Baldur's Gate 3 for what it is and kind of ignore what comes after it. We'll see. But regardless, the future is really bright for Larian Studios. I cannot wait to see what they do next. No matter what it is, I'm sure we'll all be playing it. And I think it's really cool. It shows a lot of grit to say that, no, I'm going to bet on myself. I don't need your property. I don't need your world. I can build my own, or I can continue working with my own and be just as successful. Like, honestly, that says a lot. I'll definitely be following them and keeping you all updated on any additional news that comes out. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the usual things. Subscribe, like the channel, join the Discord. If you want to get plugged to the community, I appreciate all the support thus far. And I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.